All new at 5, spooky security camera footage.
Yeah, a Metro Atlanta mom says it actually shows her son's ghost. CBS 46's Yasmina Alston spoke with some paranormal investigators to see if it's real or if it's a hoax.
Here in Canton, Georgia, a group of paranormal investigators look into the supernatural. So it was only right that we asked them about what a mom says she saw in her security footage.
It's definitely unexplainable.
A Metro mom says her home security footage captured her son's ghost.
Definitely tell that in the photo there is a human figure.
On Facebook, Jennifer Hodge posted that she was watching TV with her daughter when an alert on her phone said, "Your entryway camera saw someone." Here's what it showed.
No one's around at the time and something gets captured that we can't explain.
Hodge posted that the figure looks just like her son Robbie, who died in 2016. Hodge told media outlets her son died of an accidental drug overdose. Now, we showed the pictures to paranormal investigators Heather Thompson and Stephanie Forte with Paranormal Georgia Investigations. They agree with Hodge.
Okay, now I'm understanding what she's talking about, but it was definitely a human figure. I mean, there wasn't anything questionable as to, okay, maybe that's a curtain that's billowing, or maybe that's, an appliance. That's definitely a human figure.
The two are part of a group that investigate homes and businesses of those who think they're dealing with the paranormal. They tell me security footage can be helpful, but to confirm, an actual home visit would be necessary. Hodge posted she is happy to be able to know her son is always with them.
I'm glad that she's happy. I'm very glad that she's comforted and that this brings her joy, because I wish more people would have that type of reaction to paranormal activity.
Back in high school, before I was a Christian, I was an agnostic teenager, and there was this unique place that was close to my hometown of Mount Pleasant, Texas. And the name of this place was Barrett Cemetery. But the local partying teens had a different name for it, which was Blue Light Cemetery. I never went out there, not because I was scared or anything. I just thought paranormal stuff like that was stupid. But apparently, this cemetery had some tells surrounding it. Usually, it involved a blue light. Sometimes a blue light would appear in the cemetery and then grow larger and larger, or certain tombstones would light up with this blue light, or this blue light would chase people out of the cemetery. Now, I used to laugh at people like that, and I couldn't believe others actually believed stuff like that. I thought they were naive, or they had overactive imaginations, or they had wishful thinking, or maybe they were just high and intoxicated because a lot of partying was going on out there. But whatever the reason was, I just wasn't buying it. I do remember in high school, out of curiosity, I did go to a Wiccan ritual with a guy that I knew. And that sounds dramatic, but really it was just me and him just out in nature at night. And I just watched him sacrifice an already dead bird with a fancy knife, and he muttered some ritual jargon. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was rather anticlimactic. My agnostic self thought a creator may exist and be real, but souls, ghouls, goblins, ghosts, leprechauns, vampires, werewolves, fairies, all that stuff probably did not exist. And probably no afterlife, just nothingness. Well, things changed when I got saved at the age of 19, and my world was shook. I went from agnosticism to believism and eventually to fundamentalism as I got more spiritually serious. But when I was first saved, that definitely shook my worldview. I went from possibly believing in a creator and not really believing any of the other supernatural stuff to full-blown believing in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ and the God of the Bible, and other spiritual things like miracles, demons, and angels. Now let's be clear. the Bible doesn't teach that regular people continue to live on earth after they pass away. When Christians die, it's apparent in the Bible where they immediately go. 2 Corinthians 5:8 says, to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. Philippians 1:23, Paul is saying, for I am in a strait betwixt two, having a desire to depart and to be with Christ, which is far better. So these two verses just show you that it's immediate for a Christian. When they die, they are with God. And if we're talking generalities for Christians and non-Christians, we could look at Matthew 25:46, which says, and these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. And also Hebrews 9:27, which says, and as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. So obviously the Christian dies, he goes to life eternal, and then the non-Christian dies, he goes to a place of punishment which does not end. And also more clear is the story of the rich man and Lazarus. Luke 16:22 through 23 says, and it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. In hell he lift up his eyes, being in torments. So the Bible clearly teaches there's no intermediate state for people. It's heaven or hell, no purgatory or soul sleep or roaming around on earth and haunting people like Casper. So what about this ghost phenomenon?
It happened here in this room as 15-month-old Lily was inside her bed. Caught on camera, something walks in front of her crib, catching Lily's attention. Whatever it is, the family says it needs to go.
It's almost like she sees something that we don't.
It's an image Heather and Josh say is haunting their home.
It was chilling. It was literally a chill down your spine, like that what if factor. Like, is this what I just saw?
Caught on the couple's nanny cam video a few weeks ago, what appears to be something moving in front of the baby crib.
I freaked out. I stopped what I was doing and I ran upstairs and I grabbed my daughter.
Heather says this so-called ghost scratched her daughter Lily and attacked her too.
It scares us that it could do something else. I mean, there was even a morning that I woke up and I had felt like something was around like someone's hands were around my neck.
A team of paranormal investigators came in and tried answering some of the couple's questions and concerns. Josh's father, Jim, says it may be someone who lived in this house before.
The story that I was told was the gentleman that lived here originally committed suicide, apparently, by jumping out this window. Which is, of course, one full story down.
The couple says they don't know why this so-called ghost is targeting them, but say they don't want any part of it.
It's not physically just going after her. It feels like it's going after myself, too.
I couldn't get an explanation out of it, you know. So it's freaky, is what it is.
For now, Heather and Josh say they will stay inside this place with Lily until they're able to save up enough money and move out. Reporting in Highland Township, I'm Alan Campbell, 7 Action News.
I might have told you this before, but if I didn't, I don't believe in ghosts. I mean, look, I'm scared.
You don't?
I'm scared.
I'm gonna end it.
I'm like scared.
Oh,
you know, like when it's time to be scared.
Right.
Like if you put me in a haunted house, I'm scared.
Sure, me too. Yeah.
And you know, if you tell me there's a ghost in here, I might be scared. But like,
Can you
like
watch Investigation Discovery and shows like that by yourself alone at night?
Yeah.
I can't.
Look,
I can't watch it alone.
I'm scared when it's time to be scared. But like right now, us talking, I'll tell you, I don't think I believe in ghosts.
Okay.
I don't know. I believe in aliens.
Same.
Well, they're here. I mean, they're on the front page of the paper now.
Right.
But I don't believe in ghosts. I just everyone always is half asleep,
Right.
or it's at
Always
night, or it's alone and we heard and then we walked in and there was nothing there, or they saw it but I didn't see it.
Right.
Or I don't know. It's just always like so convenient. I think it has to be some type of like our minds playing tricks on us.
Yeah,
type deal.
some type of auditory hallucination. Right.
But all the stories are always the same. All these ghost hunter stories, they never find a ghost.
It's the same thing.
I know people that work on the shows, produce the shows. It's all a crock of full-on bull.
Yeah.
Shout
out Ghost Hunters.
Ghost
Yeah.
Hunters.
We
Shout out
just
Ghost
sunk you, but what can you do?
It is what it is. I'm laying in my bed. I lived alone. I was watching TV. I was falling asleep.
Yep. Sorry about that.
No, it's not
Yep.
you. It's me.
Yeah.
And I laid down and I had the pillow, this arm under the pillow.
Okay. Now, is this the studio apartment you mentioned before? Or is this the house?
It was not. It's the house I moved in after. It's a 3-bedroom apartment. I moved in after it.
Right.
Not the studio.
This is a house. So this is a
It's
house
like
you're living in
it's
alone.
a house I split. It's a house I split with. Like I lived upstairs, someone lived downstairs.
Okay.
Lived alone. I'm laying in my bed. I'm watching TV, and I have my pillow here, and I have my pillow. I was like just laid down, so it was like I wasn't like going right to bed, but I guess like the TV light was bothering me, and I remember like I pulled the blanket up to like this much, so I'm just like laying there, and it was only like a matter of a couple of minutes. I was wide awake, and I thought I heard someone say something. Now here's nothing. My door to my bedroom was closed.
Okay.
I always close my
You're
door.
positive it was closed.
I'm positive it was closed, and 100% positive. I close it every night. I also close the door whenever I take a shower, and I also lock the door when I take a shower because of murderers and killers.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
I
also, every time I go into the bathroom, even if I'm just going to pee, I open up the shower door and make sure there's no one in the shower.
Really?
I do that constantly.
Okay.
Even if I haven't left the house, I do it constantly.
I might, but I can see through my shower because it's glass.
Got it.
If it was like not, I probably would. I will not go into my own shower without closing the bathroom door and locking it because you're very vulnerable in there.
100%.
And you're washing your hair and you're closing your eyes. If there's a murderer, a killer, a monster, a ghost, what have you,
Right.
you don't want to be like, give them instant access to you.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
So when I go to bed, I still close my bedroom door and I lock it.
Right.
So I'm not sure if it was locked, but it was closed. And I pulled it up and I thought I heard someone say something. Not the TV. As a matter of fact, I had lowered the TV right before. The TV was very low, if not muted. And I was like getting ready for bed. And so I didn't shut it yet because I still like the glow a little bit for me to fall asleep. So I thought I heard someone, like one person, not like TV, like a person say a couple of sentences. And I'm just like, I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, maybe I didn't lower the TV all the way. But then I heard the door.
Okay.
And I'm like, but I wasn't really like, I'm just laying there, just like, not really thinking. I didn't like hear it like slam open. I just heard movement.
Right.
Movement.
Right.
And then I just felt like somebody was in the room. I don't know how to explain it. I just felt it.
Right.
I heard some words. I felt movement, and I felt like I maybe heard someone walking. It was carpeted, but you just felt it. And I didn't think anything of it. Like I didn't think certainly I was going to be attacked by a ghost or anything like that or anything. I didn't know what I was. But then a moment later, I really did feel like someone was standing above me. I don't know how to explain it, but my hand, this hand, since it was the only thing not under the covers. And I'm telling you right now. So someone then went like this, held my hand. Something, I don't know what. I felt my hand get grabbed, and then it was being held, and then it got squeezed a little, and then squeezed a little more, and squeezed a little more.
No.
To the point where I felt this kind of pressure on my hand.
This, by the way, this is real pressure. Like he's like squeezing your hand.
That's what I felt on my hand. So in my head,
you're paralyzed with fear now.
Paralyzed.
Yeah.
Paralyzed. And this all happened, I would say, in a matter of 20 seconds. But in my head, the first thing I thought of, again, super fast, was, okay, someone's holding me now. So what I just thought I heard someone say something or walk in here is true. And they are standing above me, and they're trying to see if I'm sleeping or not. I didn't think it was a ghost. I thought it was a home invasion.
Right.
And I said, I have to make sure that I'm awake right now and I'm not dreaming this. And I was. I was like, I am breathing. I'm looking around. I am awake right now.
This is real.
The pressure on my hand is getting even more. And I think what this person is testing me to see if I get up. And who knows, they might stab me, club me, shoot me, or I don't know what's going to happen. But what I did was not react to the squeezing. And I just made like I was still sleeping. And I said, what am I going to do right now?
Right.
And it let go. And I said, the only chance I have right now, if this person is standing above me, is if I surprise them and jump up and be ready to fight for my life.
Right.
I'm thinking this under the covers.
Yeah.
And
in milliseconds.
Milliseconds. I said, I'm awake. I'm 100% awake. I know I'm awake. I know I'm being squeezed right now. I thought I heard something. I guess someone's standing above me. It's either I might get killed right now. That's what I thought. And I just was, fight or flight thing. And I just was like, I had to count to 3 right now, and I'm going to jump up and fight for my life.
Right.
And I even had an idea to get into the closet because I had a little Yankee bat in the closet that I kept that they give out on like bat day.
Right.
I had like a Yankee bat in the closet. I knew it was there, and I'm like, I'm going to just fight, and I'll go for the bat. And I counted to 3, and I said, I'm going to swipe the covers off and in one motion stand. So I'll be standing on the bed. At least I'll have like some leverage above me.
Right.
And I just went 1, 2, 3. I went. I screamed at the top of my lungs. I went, ah! I threw the covers off me. I leaped up, and I'm on my bed, and nobody was there. Nobody was there, and my door was closed. And I was like, yo, hey, babe, this.
Yeah.
And my TV was on, and I flipped the light on, and I was like, did they walk back out? And I got the bat. I swung the door open, and I just screamed and ran inside. My door was locked. My lights were off. Nobody was in my house. Nobody. So what I did was I went into the living room, turned every light on, and stayed up for the entire night after that.
Of course.
Because I was like, if this is a ghost, it was a ghost, I guess. I don't believe in ghosts, but I don't know what it was. A spirit, I don't know. I put it this way. I don't know what it was, but that happened to me. I was awake. Dude, I jumped up. I jumped up to fight. I wasn't like sleeping. The only thing I could maybe think of is that I was sleeping, dreamt that, even said I am awake in my dream, and then jumped up out of the dream to fight. But I'm telling you, I just went to bed. I wasn't sleeping. I just laid down. It was moments after I laid down and I lowered the TV. I was awake. I was fully awake. I didn't fall asleep yet. I didn't even have the machine on me. So I can't explain it. But that happened to me.
That happened.
But my family, like, full-on believes in ghosts. Like, every one of them's had a ghost experience. And
That's possible.
I always roll my eyes. They tell me the stories like they leave when they come home. In the house they live in now that they are just actually moving out of, they told me like they've come home and every kitchen cabinet is open. And that's happened twice. And my stepmom screamed, and my dad came in, and he said everything was open. And then that was weird. And then one night, my sister came home, and all her drawers in her room were open, and she freaked out. And so now they were hyper aware of this happening. And this is what my sister will say. I could ask her. I question them to their face. They swear to God that then she would leave, and then she would close her room door and lock it from inside, where you need that little like thing to open it. Those are old room doors. You put the little like that little thing in and go like that. Because if you lock it from the inside, you can't get around that thing. So she would put that above the thing. They live alone. She came home one day. Her room was locked. She took the thing off the top, unlocked the door, opened it. All the drawers are open again. And after that, my sister wouldn't sleep in that room ever again.
Yeah, I wouldn't sleep in that room ever again either.
I mean, I still don't believe them. But I don't know what to tell them. Like, I believe that they're not lying, but I'm like, maybe there was like an earthquake. I don't know what the hell happened.
Interestingly enough, there was a YouGov study a few years ago. The title of this article says, 2 in 5 Americans say ghosts exist, and 1 in 5 say they've encountered one. This was put together by Jamie Ballard, a data journalist, and it was released October 21st, 2021. It says a YouGov survey of 1,000 American adults finds that many people aren't convinced that these entities are just the stuff of scary stories and horror films. More than 2 in 5 Americans say they believe demons exist at 43%, and a similar percentage, 41%, say the same about ghosts. For both, more Americans say they do exist than say they don't. The rest aren't sure. Far fewer Americans believe in the existence of werewolves at 9% or vampires at 8%, though 31% think that other supernatural beings do exist. Women are more likely than men to believe both in ghosts, 50% versus 31%, and in demons, 48% versus 38%. Education level may also play a part in whether a person believes in ghosts. Americans with postgraduate education are the least likely to believe in ghosts at 28% compared to 41% overall. The same trend applies on the topic of whether demons exist. Americans who completed postgraduate education programs are the least likely to believe in demons at 31% compared to 43% overall. Among men and women of different education levels, women are consistently more likely to believe in the existence of ghosts. Among women whose highest level of education completed is high school, 48% believe ghosts do exist. Among men with the same level of education, about half as many agree, 27%. Similarly, among women who have completed a 4-year degree, 50% believe in ghosts, 34% of comparably educated men do. When it comes to demons, there is less of a gap between similarly educated men and women. About half, 49% of women whose highest completed education level is high school think demons exist. 32% of men at the same education level agree. Among those who completed a 4-year degree, 45% of women and 42% of men think demons are real. While belief levels in ghosts are consistent across political parties, there are political divides on belief in the existence of demons. So I love how this article is also going into the political parties, because of course we got to be divided on everything, including politics and ghosts. So let's just mix it all together. So it says about half of Republicans, 51%, believe that demons are real, slightly more than the percentage of independents, 46%, who think this. And only about 1/3, 34% of Democrats agree. These results show a very slight change from a similar YouGov poll conducted in 2019, in which 54% of Republicans and 37% of Democrats said they thought demons definitely or probably exist. So in summary of what we've read so far, it looks like there's a little bit of division on the supernatural aspects of this article when it comes to political party, a little bit of difference, but I see more of a difference with educational attainment, and I guess it's trying to imply the dumber you are, the more likely you are to believe in the supernatural. I don't know if that's the hidden implication here, or perhaps it is the more educated you are, the more closed off you are because you've been indoctrinated by the liberal university system. That could be another way to look at it. But they don't really inject too much of their own opinion here, but something to consider. But let's get to the nitty-gritty of people that have actually encountered a ghost. And this is where we get to the end of this article. It says 1 in 5 Americans say they have encountered a ghost. While 41% of Americans believe that ghosts exist, about half as many, 20%, say they have personally encountered a ghost. Women, 25%, are more likely than men, 16%, to say that they've had at least one personal experience with a ghost. Americans under 30, at 27%, are also more likely than Americans who are ages 30 through 44 at 16%, or ages 45 to 64 at 20%, or 65 and older, 20%, to say they have personally encountered a ghost, even though they've had fewer years of opportunity for paranormal encounters. Fewer Americans, 11%, say they've personally encountered a demon, and hardly any say they've crossed paths with a werewolf at 4% or a vampire at 3%. So about 1 in 9, 11%, have encountered supernatural beings of a different type. So obviously, there's a lot of people that have encountered ghosts, I have not personally myself, but I've known several people in my personal life that have had some type of ghostly experience. And so this begs the questions. I mean, I'm looking at the Bible. I believe it's the Word of God, and it teaches people only go to heaven or hell. But all of these people, roughly 1 in 5, at least in the United States, have encountered a ghost. So there's a few things to consider. One, are all of these people lying? Maybe that's a possibility. 2, are they all exaggerating? Could it be 3, they're all hallucinating? Could it be 4, they're all mentally ill? Could it be 5, they're mistaken? Or 6, something else? Or could it be a mixture, a little bit of all of the possible theories I've just mentioned? Well, science has 6 reasons for why people experience ghosts. So let's look at that article. This article is entitled 6 Possible Scientific Reasons for Ghosts, and it was written by Sabrina Steyerwalt, and she is an extragalactic astrophysicist at the California Institute of Technology and adjunct faculty at the University of Virginia. So, the first reason that is given is that maybe it's a low frequency sound. So it says, just as the human eye can only see light at the range of frequencies, for example, we can't see radio waves, the human ear can only hear sounds in a range of frequencies above approximately 20,000 hertz. Sounds are too high-pitched for our ears to parse them, like the echolocation calls of most bats that fall in the ultrasonic range. So it says human ears have trouble hearing low-frequency sounds which are below 20 hertz, known as infrasound. In a 2003 study, 22% of concert goers who were exposed to sounds at 17 hertz reported feeling uneasy or sorrowful, getting chills or nervous feelings of revulsion and fear. So what are some of the more ordinary origins of such low-frequency sounds? Weather events like earthquakes and volcanic activity or lightning and communication between animals, including elephants, whales, and hippos, can all produce infrasound. And if you don't live by any volcanoes or hippos but still think your house may be haunted, humans also create low-frequency sound via diesel engines, wind turbines, and some loudspeakers or chemical explosions. So that's the first reason. Second reason put forth is mold. So it says breathing in toxic mold can be bad for your respiratory system, but it can also be bad for your brain. So this can have neurologic symptoms like delirium, dementia, or irrational fears. So you think of your typical haunted house, a lot of them could be very old or in disrepair, and maybe quite possibly full of a lot of toxic mold. Well, scientists have worked hard to draw a firm link between the presence of mold and reported ghost sightings, but so far the evidence is mostly anecdotal. Third reason, possibly carbon monoxide. So similar to breathing in mold could lead us to see, hear, and feel things that aren't really there. So too can breathing in too much carbon monoxide. We have carbon monoxide detectors in our homes to make sure we are not breathing in this odorless, colorless gas that slowly poisons us while going undetected by our senses. But before a carbon monoxide gas leak poisons us, it can cause auditory hallucinations, a feeling of pressure on your chest, and an unexplained feeling of dread. A fourth possible reason is the power of suggestion. It says that studies suggest that we are more likely to believe in a paranormal experience if someone else who was there can back up our belief. So while we might be able to convince ourselves that we are somehow mistaken about what we saw or heard, We tend to put more stock into someone else's eyewitness account if it also backs our suspicions, so our belief in ghosts can be catching. And sometimes it's pointed out that Ouija boards, is it really a spirit moving the planchette, or is it somebody subconsciously moving it without realizing it? What about number 5, giraffes? It says, as the days get hotter and air conditioning becomes more and more expensive, people rely on opening their windows to cool their homes. Opening windows on the opposite ends of a room can create a nice breeze, but it can also create cold spots as airflow outside changes, causing cooler air to enter a warmer room. Drafts can also sneak in through chimneys and cause doors to slam or doorknobs to rattle. And then the last reason proposed as to an explanation for ghostly encounters is that the fact that people enjoy being afraid. It says that neurologists have found that our brains release dopamine, a chemical associated with pleasure when we are afraid. I mean, that also explains why so many people enjoy horror movies, because of being safe and having that adrenaline rush and that dopamine released while watching said movies. Exactly how much dopamine and how many receptors we have for receiving it can influence whether you are a person that enjoys being frightened or someone who would rather avoid scary movies or rides altogether. So for some, letting our imaginations run wild with the possibilities of cohabiting with ghosts, although scary, may also produce a bonus euphoric high. Of course, believing in ghosts also allows us to believe in existence after death, which can be really comforting. So just reading some of these scientific possible explanations for ghosts, I agree this could probably explain some of ghost stories or even famous ghost stories. And in fact, reading on some of these, I think are definitely hoaxes, no doubt. And they could either fall into one of the categories just mentioned, and sometimes there's just a fame and monetary incentive to play up some of these ghost stories. And I mean, it gets to the point where you can even see dollar signs that lead to movie deals and book deals and all sorts of merchandising. And so, of course, you can't also discount a financial incentive with some of these, or just attention seeking. So yeah, of course, I believe some of these cases are fake and they're not real. But what about these experiences that can't be explained because of low frequency sounds or mold or power suggestion or some of the other things? So though I haven't personally encountered ghosts or Casper or those types of ghouls and goblins, I mean, there's a lot of well-meaning people that have experienced this. So experiences and science can be interesting with their different theories, but at the end of the day, I believe the Bible is the final authority. So people may say that's unreasonable or circular reasoning, but I don't really care. I mean, if you want to believe in man's logic, which I think is ultimately dumb, that's fine. That's your choice. But the Bible is God's word, and I don't think the Bible contradicts science, and I believe the Bible's right about everything. And it's been around for thousands of years and will always be around, while popular theories and philosophies and these different experiments and logic will go away. And anything relying on man's logic or philosophy like that will go away. So what's going on with these ghostly encounters? I mean, if the Bible doesn't really talk about it, doesn't it mean that it's settled? I mean, you either go to heaven or hell. So case closed on this. Well, maybe not.
What's going on with you and all this ghost story? In the sense that this is a very heavy thing for me, because as I get up in years, I'm hoping there's some sort of afterlife. I don't think there is, but you give me hope.
Sure.
You give me hope, Sammy.
there's something going on, Howard. I don't know what it is, but, I've been touched in weird ways sometimes in dreams and while I'm awake, and you're thinking it's a dream, and things happen. My father visited me. My manager, when he died, visited me the night they died.
Yeah, but wait a second. It's deeper than that, Sammy. What you're saying is, if I have it right, your father, hard-drinking man, tough guy.
Died under a park bench, basically. I mean, in the back of a car, a police car, but they pull him out from a park bench, you know what I mean?
And the night he dies, there's a knock on your door. You hear a distinct knock. You were sleeping or you were awake?
I got up and answered the door.
Right.
And in my house, right where I was, the person that was with me, my baby was in, I had a little 2-year-old, Aaron was a little 2-year-old boy, and I answered the door, and it was my dad. He was like in his 20s, and he was drunk and going crazy, and he was saying, "Great day for the Irish," and all this stuff, and I said, "Don't ever come like this in front of my baby." Woke him up, and it all happened. It was like a dream. Slammed the door, went and laid back down. God's truth. I mean, you can't make this up.
No.
And somebody knocked on the door, and I go, he's back. I went and opened the door, and it was my next door neighbor who had a telephone that was an emergency number for my sister and my family, because I was living, I was with my band. We were all sleeping in the same house and all that, same room. Anyway, and he goes, "Hey, your sister's on the phone." Look, Howard, my fur is up.
You got goosebumps.
Yeah, I do, all over my body, man. And so I just went, wow, my sister, I knew. I mean, they found Dad. They're 4 o'clock in the morning,
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And that's happened.
Do you ever
twice.
think, since it's happened, do you think maybe you were asleep, or you were awake when your father visited you?
I don't know. That's too out there, man.
What was the second time it happened?
Well, my manager, Ed Leffler, who, when I joined Van Halen, when I got thrown out of it, when we were having our hard times, Ed Leffler had died. After that, the band broke up. And Ed Leffler was my manager forever, and then he took over Van Halen. And I was sitting there, we were going through hell with the band, and they had hired this manager guy who they ended up suing and all this stuff. We won't mention names, but long story short, I talked about it in my book. And Ed, I was sitting there, I was laying in bed, and I just didn't know what to do. I didn't want to quit the band, but I knew it was over. We were really at odds. And Ed comes to me, kneels down next to me in my bed. I'm smelling him. He's a cigarette smoker, he had a certain smell about him, And I'm going, "Damn, Ed, what am I going to do?" He says, "Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay, man." He says, he just came and flat said that and just straightened me right out. I said, the next thing I know, I was thrown out of the band, and life was good for me. You know what I mean? Like, so do
you believe in the afterlife?
Yeah. I believe in dimensions. Yeah, I think there's a lot going on right in this room.
Why is everything happening to you and not me? I don't understand. I lay in bed, nothing happened. Nobody visits.
You
nothing.
can have the.
Does it scare you when it happens?
He'd like you to have it.
It's scary.
It's scary.
It's scary.
Were you visited by aliens as well?
Yeah, and I had a UFO experience, and that was in 67, 68.
And you weren't high or anything?
No, I didn't do drugs. I didn't even drink back then.
And who visited?
They just randomly picked me, and I woke up while they were doing it. I'm going, "What the f*** is going on?" My room was white. I mean, I was like, I couldn't see anything. It was a complete whiteout. I lay there, couldn't move. All of a sudden, they said in another language, just telepathy, "This is done." He's waking up or whatever. And they yelled a numerical code that was obviously, like your passcode to get into your,
Yeah.
And boom, it was almost like a wire in the air. And I woke up and it was black, and I was shaking and I couldn't move.
And when when you tell that story, guys like Jason look at you like you're crazy. He's back there making hand signals like cuckoo.
He's jealous.
He's jealous. Aren't you jealous?
I've never heard that story yet.
Well, he's been visited. Why him?
It was from a distance. They programmed into me. They like, they wireless. Do
you think they programmed that you would one day be the lead singer of a band?
No. I think that opened my mind. It was like a big acid trip, brother.
The scary movie where you started getting bruises all over your body during the filming?
That was The Conjuring. That movie's awesome.
Okay.
I'm a big Conjuring fan. Yeah.
That movie is so up. That movie messed me up for my whole life.
How do you explain that all of a sudden during the filming of the movie, mysterious bruises show up on you?
All right. Okay. Let's jump into this story, because this story, it's so weird. And this is truly like the root of why I'm so scared of that movie. So, in the story, when the mom gets possessed, she gets all these bruises on her. And so during the filming of those particular scenes, I started having a lot of bruises show up on my body in bizarre places, like on my stomach, on my chest. Like, what? And so the makeup ladies thought I was stealing their fake bruises and like playing a joke on them. And I was like, why would I do that? I'm not doing that. That's crazy. They didn't believe me. They tried to take my real bruises off with like rubbing alcohol and oil. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm not lying. I went to the doctor. I got a couple blood tests because they told me it looked like it could potentially be early signs of leukemia. I was so freaked out. I mean, by the way, I'm 12. Like, what doctor says that to a 12-year-old? What kind of bedside manner is that? So I get these blood tests. All of a sudden, I'm told that I have this blood thinning condition called ITP, where basically most of my red platelets drained from my body mysteriously. I'd never had a blood problem in the past. I've never had a blood problem since then. No one in my family has that. So I was at risk of needing a blood transfusion, and they were like scared to even let me work. And because if I like touched something, I could get a bruise there. It was weird. And so I had to go to the hospital every day, twice a day, before and after work, to get my blood taken to check my platelets and to try and rebuild my platelets on my own by taking a lot of iron. And they were just creeping up for the duration of the shoot. Shooting finishes, I go home, and I still have to keep up with this. And then when I came home, my platelets were completely fine. Like, I was back up to the normal numbers, and I've never since had a trace of that disorder.
So no wonder you're freaked out by ghosts.
Are you kidding me? Like, I was just like, you know what? This is it for me. Like, I've had a good run. I'm 12 years old. I'm just going to, get killed by a ghost now. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That is such a weird story, and no one has an explanation for it.
I feel so freaked out by it. It's like so scary. The other day, I looked up a photo of the witch from the movie, because that's the real name of the woman. And I felt so scared typing her name into my web browser. I was like, she's watching me. She's going to kill me.
By the way, who is that person behind you? This.
My heart just like jumped in my
I was just trying to scare you.
Yeah, and it worked. It really worked.
We listened to this TV show, The Ghost Stories.
Oh, yes.
Where you whip out that story about a ghost living in your apartment.
True.
It's not true.
true.
Listen to me. Why don't you take a camera out and videotape the ghost? And then you would be the biggest thing on television. Why would you not do that if you see a vision of a ghost in your apartment?
Look, I'm getting quiet because I'm thinking, this is not stupid. I am very comforted with her.
Listen to me.
She's still there?
She's there.
I was at that place the other day. I was wondering, does the ghost live here?
I would have taken you upstairs.
Really?
I love
Joan,
Mrs. Spencer.
You're one of the smartest people I know. You're a rational person. I want you to look at me seriously.
Seriously.
You're telling me there's such a thing as ghosts?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not afraid to die because you now know there's an afterlife. You've met a ghost.
I'm not afraid to die because it's almost time. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Joan, listen to me. You could have real friends. You don't need imaginary friends. You're still
yes,
popular.
I do.
You do? Oh, it's so sad. Should I come visit you?
When was the last time you came to my apartment?
I don't want to go there.
You're one of many.
That's true. Nobody visits you anymore.
Nobody visits me anymore.
Take me through. I know you've been through this a million times, this TV show. I felt you did it because, listen, it's a TV show. Why not? You go on, you get paid and this and that. I don't believe you believe there is a ghost.
I had it exorcised.
I understand that. You brought in a woman from Haiti.
Right.
No, I brought in my Sally Ann Glassman from New Orleans.
You are kidding me.
No.
How much did you pay her to get rid of your ghost?
Nothing. That's how you know she's good.
Listen to me. You've gone insane. You've literally gone insane.
This is 14 years ago when I first moved into the apartment.
You came into the apartment. I want to understand everything because I want you to, I want you to be straight with me.
Yeah.
Because I would love to believe there were ghosts. I'd be thrilled to meet a ghost. You know why? Because that means I'm going to go on. I'm going to have a life.
Yes. And ghosts. I have my friend Tommy Corcoran, who is now in my country house in Connecticut.
Oh, you've got another one.
The guy who died, the gay guy, who was in bed with you.
He's my best friend, who I adored.
He's living in your house.
He's in my house in Connecticut. He's been seen by 4 different people. And I am so
Don't
happy.
you think Joan and her friends are insane?
Well, what are they going to say when Joan says, did you see Tommy? Of course they're going to say
You know what's
yes.
even worse? My luck, I'm going to die and spend eternity in Joan Rivers' apartment.
Yeah. The only thing is you'll hate the music because it's all show tune.
Oh, that'll be hell.
That'll be hell.
All right, let me understand something. You walk into your apartment.
This was when it was being renovated.
All right. You walked in, and I know you heard noises, and it got
The
cold.
dog wouldn't come in.
Dog wouldn't come in. Whatever. There's all probable explanations.
Yeah.
I want to know right now for my audience. You saw Mrs. Spencer?
I felt Mrs. Spencer. I have
Okay.
never seen Mrs. Spencer.
And what about your friend Tommy Cochran? Have you seen him?
I have not seen, but others have seen him. But he left something that I found. He said, "Tell Joan there's something that she's looking for, and it's down in the basement."
And who did he tell this
How
to?
did you get this message? I have a lady who works for me who's a psychic. And
How much money are they cleaning you out of? Ay vey. What is the matter with you? You're so lonely.
she said,
Go ahead. You need a date. I'm going to hook you up. Don't worry. We're going to help you out.
Let's get him in physical first.
Now I see how serious it
The
is.
spirits get through dinner, Howard.
Yeah. Oh, Joan, this is so
They
sad.
get through dinner.
Tommy Cochran.
Tommy Cochran said,
I had put his ashes
right.
to sprinkle in Connecticut.
Okay.
Way up in my attic.
Go ahead.
And they were left there, and we couldn't find them and couldn't find
You
them.
couldn't find this man's ashes.
Couldn't find the ashes. And ashes, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you knew they were in the attic.
Substantial, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he said to this lady, tell her look in the basement. There's something in the basement. And I went down the basement. There were the ashes. And
So
nobody knew what was in them and how they got down. So
how special could this guy have been to you if you lost his ashes? I mean, really.
Well, I put them up there. I don't know how he. But you're
Somebody
always
moved
asking
them.
for something. My mother died, and I was in California, and my mother was in New York, and I said, "Give me a sign. Give me a sign." And I bought my mother a lot of these things happening, a little gold fish.
Right.
And I opened my medicine chest in California, and there was the fish on the shelf.
Several years ago, I got interested in what the Bible actually had to say about ghosts and ghostly experiences. So when I was researching this, I was expecting to find 0 results. However, I was shocked to find a lot of related terms. So maybe there's not super specific mentions of ghosts as we kind of define it as someone that dies and their spirit roams on earth. There are related terms in several mentions of things like necromancy and divination and familiar spirits. So I find that especially interesting, especially the amounts of times that necromancy is mentioned. So necromancy can just simply be defined as contacting the dead, trying to speak to dead spirits. And this could be in the form of seances or Ouija boards or things of that like. And then divination is trying to predict the future, and this usually involves mediums contacting spirits or ghosts. And then we have the term familiar spirits, which is seen quite a bit in the Bible. And this could be related to practices of witches that are trying to use entities or spirits to have power or control forces. And familiar spirits, it could also be associated with people that talk to the dead, trying to contact spirits they're familiar with. And that could relate to people in their family or close friends that have passed on, and they're trying to contact those familiar spirits. So a lot of mentions of this in the Bible. There's a famous story of the witch of Endor, and you can find this in 1 Samuel chapter 28. Very interesting, highly debated story. So basically the plot is King Saul, the king of Israel at this time, has been really straying from God. And because of that, God is upset with him and he has stopped talking to Saul. Well, that's not good enough for Saul. So he makes this extremely horrible decision. He decides to consult with a witch to contact the prophet Samuel, who had recently died. And he just wants to reach out to Samuel. He wants to get some word from the heavenly realm. The scriptures say that the witch asked Saul who he would like to bring up, and Saul says, "I want to talk to Samuel." And then the witch sees Samuel and cries with a loud voice. And Samuel's spirit says to Saul, because you didn't obey the Lord or execute wrath on Amalek, tomorrow you will be delivered to the Philistines, and you and your sons will be with me. Saul is devastated by this news, and sure enough, he's dead the next day. So as I mentioned, the story of the Witch of Endor, it's highly debated because necromancy is actually not possible according to the Bible. The Bible warns against necromancy a lot, but it's not actually possible because the Bible makes it clear that when people die, they either go to heaven or hell, and there's no way to talk to them. That is a barrier that is closed off. So what happened in this story? Some people think it wasn't Samuel, but actually a demon disguised as Samuel, and that's what the witch brought up. I actually don't believe this because the verse actually says it was Samuel. So how did the witch bring up someone from heaven? I don't think she had involvement in this. So if you look at the text, specifically 1 Samuel 28 verses 11 through 12, it says, Then said the woman, Whom shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. She was greatly surprised that Samuel actually appeared. I think God allowed Samuel to appear and deliver one last message of doom to Saul. Because, as I said, it doesn't say she conjured or she muttered some words and then Samuel appeared. He just shows up and she's scared. So, does God allow people to appear as ghosts? And that's why so many people see ghosts? Like, is this more common than kind of what we see in the Bible? Because I just talked about the story of the Witch of Endor. And possibly somebody can make the claim when Jesus has the encounter with the Mount of Transfiguration when he's on earth. And some of the other followers of Jesus see Moses and Elijah, who had not been on earth for a long time. But this was a rare supernatural event where they see Jesus, Moses, and Elijah. But mentioning that that is rare, it seems like these ghost encounters are more common than what we see in the Bible. And so I say that Samuel was a special incident that God allowed to deliver a message of doom to King Saul. So, going back to a question I mentioned earlier, so are all these people lying, mistaken, or hallucinating that contact the dead or see ghosts? This is what I think is going on. Remember that Satan was originally a beautiful angel of God. He was known as Lucifer, the light bearer. And also keep this in mind, Satan's demons were originally angels as well. One aspect of angels that we know from the good ones that did not fall was that angels can appear as men. Mark 16:5, it says this is speaking of the day that Jesus was buried and he rose from the grave. There was a huge stone removed from his grave that wouldn't be possible by mortal men. It says, And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were frightened. This young man in white clothes, he's an angel, but he appears as a man, as a young man. So we know at least some of the angels have that capability. Now, if Satan and his followers, his demon angelic followers, fell from heaven, did they lose that ability? I don't think so necessarily, because we know that after Satan fell from heaven, he also appeared as a snake in the Garden of Eden. Because Genesis 3:1 says, the serpent was more subtle than any beast. And subtle is a word that means he is very convincing in his deceit. His lies can pretty much be unnoticed by most of the population. Couldn't this be applied to his different ways of appearing to people and deceiving them? And as I said, Lucifer, the light bearer, 2 Corinthians 11 verse 14 says, Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. So this big, awful, evil creature we know as Satan can appear as an angel of light. Satan is also attributed to Beelzebub. In Mark 3:22, these are the scribes. They are critiquing Jesus and trying to denounce him. It says, and the scribes which came down from Jerusalem said, He hath Beelzebub, and by the prince of the devils casteth he out devils. Beelzebub was originally a Philistine god known as the Lord of Flies. So, here again, we have Satan associated with something else than his original form. Satan can also perform miracles. 2 Thessalonians 2:9 says, Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. So what is the extent of this deceitful power and signs and lying wonders? Well, it must be pretty far-reaching, because specifically this verse is referring to the Antichrist being powered by Satan himself. And the Antichrist is going to deceive the entire world except for the Christians. So most of the world is going to buy into this. Also, we have some mentions of demons having different forms in the Bible. Like, for example, some demons can appear like frogs. In Revelation 16:13, it says, and I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs. And we also have Deuteronomy 32:17, which says, they sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not. So all these different gods, other than the God of the Bible, are actually devils. So it applied to all the different gods back then. Think of through all the ages, all the hundreds and thousands of years, these pagan cultures, all these gods were demons. And you can even think of modern pagan gods. I mean, look at some of these Hindu gods with their crazy forms that look demonic in nature. It's still a demon. Nothing's changed from the time of the Old Testament. So as we've seen in the Bible, the devil and demons can deceive people by being different entities. And to summarize the message of what the Bible is saying about ghosts, I think ghosts are actually demons impersonating loved ones. But I've heard from people that say they've contacted their dead relatives, and they have shared this info with me that only the 2 of them would know. So, for example, somebody contacts their dead grandpa or dead grandma, and it's communicated with certain details by this spirit that only the person contacting this dead relative would know. And it's pretty much like, well, who else would know this other than my dead grandpa or grandma? Maybe it's a certain detail about their childhood on the playground or on the swing, or maybe they had a truck ride together, this person contacting their dead grandma or grandpa, and they would ride in the truck and talk about certain things in the morning. And then the spirit is reaching out saying it's their grandpa or grandma, saying about the time they rode in the truck and they had this specific conversation. Well, guess who else knows that? the devil or some of his demons, because, I mean, the devil roams everywhere seeking whom he may devour, and the demons are the same way. So they would also know details that you had with certain friends or family members that have passed on. So not only was the devil around when your grandma was alive, but he was around when you were born, and he's been around for thousands of years and has millions of demons that have observed trillions of human interactions. Don't be deceived. You may say, I went to a seance, I had this beautiful experience, I was crying tears because I talked to my loved one that passed on so long ago. It was so beautiful, it was so meaningful. Why would the devil do such a lovely thing? Well, here's why. Because the devil's purpose is to deceive. That's what he does. He hates humanity. So if he can deceive everyone and they die and go to hell, well, then that's what he wants. So if it can pull you away from the truth of the Bible, then the devil's happy with that. And the Bible has very strong warnings against talking to familiar spirits because they are evil spirits, aka demons. People can have negative experiences with ghosts, but some feel it offers hope that their grandparents are still around, but they are around, just not in this world. People that get involved with necromancy and ghost hunting start to seriously doubt the Bible or just not consider the Bible at all or Christianity, and that's exactly what the devil wants. Because people do pass on and go to an afterlife, but which afterlife are they referring to? Because the Bible talks about heaven and hell, whereas these ghost hunter people think you can stick around, and that's clearly not true.
What's the book about, mate?
The book is essentially kind of a documentation about the various experiences I've had with like the paranormal and ghosts and whatnot, and trying to basically figure out what these things are, you know? Like, to me, all of the various like answers or whatever that I've found from whether it's religion or the supernatural or these purported ghost hunters groups and whatnot have just never satisfied me. So this is me kind of trying to look at it from a scientific point of view and try to apply some, you know, physics and things that make sense to me to figure out what these things could be.
Why not just apply the science in a way that says, look, we know so little about what happens after death, and we know so little about all this stuff that there are probably non-paranormal explanations for these things. There, probably people I don't know, being misled or something. Why take the step into finding explanations that are paranormal?
There was enough things that I saw and that I experienced that I couldn't disprove by doing that, by just applying common sense or whatnot, that I was like, you know, something's going on.
What kind of stuff?
Just, you know, thermoses flying across my kitchen at 7 a.m. when I'm the only one up, you know? I mean, it's very weird, and it's very disconcerting when you're trying to make breakfast for your son, you know, and I haven't had any coffee, you know? It's, you know, it's stuff like that, you know? I mean, footsteps running up behind you on hardwood floors, and you turn around and there's nothing there, you know? I mean, these are real things, and I talk about it in the book, but, you know, the more I tried to explore various reasons and whatnot, or various things to kind of back up my theories, the more I found is like, maybe I'm not nuts, you know? So, I mean,
Where did this start? Did this begin as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I had something happen to me when I was 10. What was that? It was at this abandoned house, and it was a bunch of friends of mine and whatnot. And we snuck out at midnight, and this tells you what year it was, where 10-year-olds could sneak out of a house at midnight, you know?
It was back in the Hoover administration.
Yeah, of course. Yes, it was wonderful. See, the fix is in, Jackie. But yeah, I mean, it was cool. You know, there was this abandoned house that we passed every day on the way to school, and we called it Cold House. And I mean, we were terrified of it. You know, it was one of those things where you elbow each other and go, "You go in." No, you go in.
I had one of those as well.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So one night during the summer, and we were all off, and my friends and I, we snuck out of our, you know, respective apartments and whatnot, and we snuck across the street, and it was only a few blocks away. And we went in, and just charged, just really just to explore, not expecting anything weird to happen. Long story short, we were all standing on the first floor of this place, and it was 2 stories, and this thing came down the stairs at us. And I mean, it was like this silhouette of a man that was kind of backlit in a weird way from its own energy came down the stairs at us, and we flipped out, like killed ourselves, like running from the house and whatnot. My leg went through the rotted wood on the front porch, and I still have a scar, like on my shin right here.
You want to show us the scar?
And yeah,
if I
get these tight pants,
ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
The skinny jeans have done us no good
really,
in terms of showing scars.
Don't mind the skull socks, by the way.
Every rock star has to. There we go.
Yeah,
Look at that.
right,
Can we get a
right
close up on?
area.
There you go.
Not this. This is fresh. This was me walking into the bed this morning because I'm really intelligent that way.
So that is the scar that you obtained
scar,
running away from a ghost at age 10.
Yes, and you know, and some people aspire to be in the Glee Club. I run from ghosts.
The mansion burned down with everything else in the area in 1959, when fire ravaged the hills. From what I have been able to research, a woman named Fania Pearson eventually purchased the properties on all four corners of Laurel Canyon and Lookout Mountain and owned them from the 60s to the mid-90s. These included the real Houdini house, the Tom Mix / Frank Zappa cabin, and the mansion. To this day, there are people who live in the canyon who doubt Houdini ever even visited there. But by then, the legend had taken on a life and purpose of its own. Never mind all the evidence and documentation. That doesn't stop people from seeing his ghost, quote unquote, walking the grounds and frightening children. Nor does it keep groups from trying to hold seances somewhere on the property to contact the great Houdini. The master of magic is making the rounds more frequently in death than in life. The residents in the canyon have legends that have nothing to do with Houdini and his immortal coil, like how the mansion was a squat in the heady decades of rock roll in the Sunset Strip. There was even a rumor that Vasquez's gold, was supposedly hidden beneath some of the foliage on the trails that run up the back of the house. One tale features a mentally deranged gentleman who was convinced he was Robin Hood reborn, and the canyon was Sherwood Forest. Children going to and from Wonderland Elementary had to beware of arrows and Old English. Most believe this is who people truly saw when they claimed it was Houdini back from beyond the grave. You might be asking yourself if I am defeating the purpose of this book by debunking this house and its charm. What am I doing answering questions that no one wants to ask? I'm merely setting the tone for my experiences by setting the record straight on the whole Houdini thing. None of my stories have anything to do with the king of cuffs and cards. From what I can tell, there's no need for his presence. Tales run rampant of inhabitants being murdered or committing suicide in the mansion. People allegedly overdosed or were assaulted at punk parties during the 70s and 80s. One story has the son of a well-to-do furniture maker pushing a scorned lover to her death from one of the balconies. Another involves finding the body of a man dressed in a tuxedo hanging from the ceiling in one of the bedrooms when the place was vacant. This was apparently in response to a rebuked proposal. I don't know what would possess a man dressed as Archibald Leach to kill himself in a vacant property, but if Homo sapiens have a defining characteristic, it's the one in which they reach for the highest and brightest example of crazy. By the way, remember the one about Tuxedo Man. It'll have more meaning later. My time in the mansion begins in 2003, when I moved in with the rest of Slipknot to begin the recording of what would be Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses. The funny thing is that I didn't even stay there that first night. I went out on the town and passed out at a stranger's house. That was par for the course during the first month of making that album, crashing at someone else's house. I would walk up the driveway each morning, hungover and miserable, but I would always wave and say hello to the groundskeeper, who would smile and shake his head at my appearance from the street. My paranormal experience with the mansion started the way most crazy things do, with a dare. Some of the guys and I were exploring, getting the lay of the land and checking out the place. We were running up and down the trails in the back and scampering across the bridge on the side of the house. We ran up and down and back up the stairs, looking on every floor and leaning into every room. No one had chosen their respective bedrooms yet because the majority of the band had not arrived. So we had the run of this decadent keep. The house is the size of a museum. If I can be allowed to gush a bit, the place is fantastic. I was in love with it from day one. We were acting like kids, and I was having a ball until we made our way into the basement. I know there are not many basements in California, but I believe this one was at one time a wine cellar. There was a bedroom of sorts. It had a bed and a lamp against a brick wall. And there was also an odd room just to the left with a strange door that slid to the side. I opened it and darkness answered. There was just absolutely no light inside. No bulb or window or anything. And even though the house's air conditioning had not been turned on yet and we were all sweating to death, this room was ice cold. Someone blurted out, "Get in there, I dare you." So I did. I walked to the middle of the room and smiled as they closed the door. This is nothing, I thought to myself. And then something walked right through me. Seeing as I was in complete ebon blackness, I felt it but did not see it happen. This, however, made it infinitely worse. One minute nothing was happening, the next I was pushed backward with the violation. The only way I can describe this sensation is that it was like being possessed by the winds of Antarctica. No, that really doesn't cut it either. It was like someone made of ice tried to hold me. I cried out a little in the dark, and from behind the door I heard the guys laugh. I scrambled for the door handle, threw it open, and fled upstairs. Everybody was taken aback. "What happened?" they asked. I wouldn't answer. I just walked around for a while, trying to beat some warmth into my limbs and not really accomplishing anything. Unfortunately for the boys and me, this was only the beginning. Gear and amps alike malfunctioned. A whole session was lost because a strange loop started playing in the headphones that would only go away when we finally shut down the whole mixing board and recording unit. Things would disappear and reappear in other rooms that were clear on the other side of the house. Everyone would tell me their stories, but only when no one else was around. They had no idea it was happening to everybody. People staying in the renovated garage under the house would wake up to someone screaming in their face, but no one would be there. Invisible visitors would sit on their beds. The dogs in the house were going ape. I could hear them late at night losing their minds, and then find out the next day after investigation that there was not a single person around, not even a California varmint. I've had so many people caution me against writing this book because of the incredible amount of cynicism that will wash my way like garbage on the waves, just surfing to gain access to my little world in order to bring me down. My response has always been the same. It's not my fault that there are millions of human beings who refuse to believe in something fantastic. Of course, by saying that, I allow myself to fall under the same scrutiny I myself have reserved for people who believe in gods. I offer you this simple solution. Read this book for entertainment, amusement, or peace of mind. I don't really care. About a month or so into my tenure at the mansion, my first real moment happened. But before I regale you with this, I have to give you some geographical background. In layman's terms, you have to know the lay of the land. Let me set the scenery. There are several rooms and wings in the mansion. There is a wing like a treehouse that has a set of stairs and a bedroom that you can enter using a bridge. There are also 3 rooms at the top of the main staircase, a hallway to the left of the stairs that leads to 2 other bedrooms, and yet another staircase, which takes you to 2 more bedrooms and the pool house. There are also bedrooms in the aforementioned basement and finished garage. The place is a massive lesson in futility, honestly. Paths take you to several different places, none of which are the exact location that you were looking for in the first place. One time when I was there alone, I got so lost that I finally gave up, went outside, and walked all the way around the house just so I could go in the front door and get my bearings straight. It is a beautiful yet confounding construction. Anyway, Clown and I shared the 2 rooms at the end of the hallway leading away from the stairs. Last door on the left and straight on till morning. It was essentially one room split into 2 sections. Clown had the half with the balcony and the sunshine, and I had the half with the bathroom and the thermostat. It worked out great for everyone. I later learned it was the same room that Cameron from American Head Charge stayed in when that band was recording there. The story goes that he lasted 1 night. Something happened after that first night that drove him into the control room to sleep, and that's where he stayed for the entire recording process. Someone told me that he never went back in that room, ever. Well, Clown and I were never anything if not completely and utterly obstinate. But in retrospect, I can see why Cameron bailed. On the evening in question, Clown was not even there. He had gone back to Iowa to see his family. So I had the place to myself, and as people alone are prone to do, I was acting like the parents were away for the week. Now I should explain something. There was only one door into our bedrooms. There were balcony doors, sure, but there was no way for anyone to enter using those. We were on the 2nd floor, not to mention the fact that they were locked when Clown was away. He always locked those doors when he was gone, and I respected that. I never went in his room anyway. So there was only one door in and out of our wing, and that door opened into the hallway. The door was also perpendicular to the bathroom door, creating a sort of L shape in the front corner of our entryway. Basically, whoever came in, our bathroom was the first thing you saw on the left. Get it? Got it? Good. So I was alone in our rooms. The door to our room was shut and locked. The doors to the balcony were shut and locked. But the door to the bathroom was wide open. I was taking a shower, getting ready to hit the town with a vengeance. This was back in my long hair days, so I had just washed a quart of shampoo out of my hair whilst simultaneously preparing to throw a liter of conditioner back in just to be able to get a brush through it. I was in a great mood, singing along to the Bee Gees. What? It was You Should Be Dancing. The shower curtain was open a smidge, and I could see the room from my vantage point. I looked up. A man in a tuxedo walked past the open door, staring right at me. I froze for a half second, then vaulted out of the shower, racing into the bedroom naked with way too much conditioner on my head. It was literally no longer than a second, but there was nobody there. I was alone in the room. All the skin on the back of my neck turned into white hackles. I searched the room for unlocked doors or windows, but the place was tight as a drum. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that from that angle, Tuxedo Man would have had to walk through the door of our bedroom. Not open it and come in, but through it. After about a minute, it suddenly dawned on me that I was soaking wet and without apparel. So I calmly yet cautiously made my way back into the bathroom to finish my shower. But my joyous mood had fled. I finished my shower with both eyes on the door. Years later, a reporter told me about the man in the tux that was found having hung himself, and I was so freaked out that I cut the interview short, which I never do. It was chilling. The thing is, though, that I didn't get a sinister vibe off the thing. Tuxedo Man was just walking through my world, or I was just taking a shower in his, and probably didn't even care that I was there. Our natural instinct as human/animal combos is to fear what we don't understand, the fight-or-flight method. But later, when we can rationalize and focus, we can see the true nature of things. My reaction was normal, as was my realization later that there was nothing to fear. Don't misunderstand, there have been times when I have experienced forces that did have ill intent. But Tuxedo Man was not one of those malicious beings. He was just having a stroll. Over the next few months, the activity tripled. One of the boys swears he watched someone walk into his room, stand at the end of the bed, and then slowly dissipate. He was sure it was one of us terrorizing him until the thing f***ed off. After that, he had a hard time even being in the room by himself. He moved all his out and waited until the very last minute to go to bed. Another ghost got into the machine in the control room one night as we were making a rough mix of Vermilion. It started looping a section of a verse, so we hit record and began making a remix of that loop. You can actually hear it on the album. It's in between Before I Forget and Vermilion Part 2. Clown told me one that with me to this day. Apparently, he had gotten up one night to use the bathroom. As he was walking by my bed, he swore there was someone in the bed with me, squirming and moving around. When he switched the light on in the bathroom, he looked back and I was the only one there. No doubt you can see how this particular story made my blood curdle a bit. Meanwhile, more and more belongings were being flung about, and the screaming continued. A certain attic was exquisitely horrifying, emanating the sounds of a loud, violent murder for a full night. People started having serious talks about leaving, or at least swapping rooms. The shenanigans in the Clown Taylor wing kept on getting weirder and more irritating. Shit kept flying off of my roommate's dresser, no matter how many times he picked it up. One afternoon, we were at the old music shop on La Cienega, Black Market Music, sadly no longer with us. We were looking for acoustic guitars. What we found were stacks of the same black and white photo of Robert F. Kennedy. So of course, because we are a clutch of quirks, we bought them all and displayed them in our rooms. But it was obvious from day one of this purchase that the original inhabitants of 2451 were not fans of RFK, bastard Republican haunts, and kept knocking them off of everything, walls, tables, whatever was being utilized. I should explain that when we moved into the mansion, there was no furniture or anything in place. For Clown and me, we received 2 beds, 2 chests of drawers, 2 end tables, and 2 digital alarm clocks. Knowing Clown's love, red, pure white hatred, for clocks in general, his remained on top of my bureau. Mine was put on an end table, but I never bothered to set either of them, seeing as I got my time off of my nifty Nextel cell phone. The clocks were both wrong the entire time I was there. I never even thought about setting the alarms. So you can imagine my dismay when one night, at around 3:30 in the morning, both the alarms went off. At the same time, even though they were not synced up. Trust me, at that ungodly hour, I checked. There was no alarm, and there was no way they could have been on the same page, so to speak. As I said before, the thermostat was in my room. This thermostat not only controlled the temperature in my room and Clown's little nook, but it also handled the temp for the entire second floor and subsequent wings on our side of the manse. Every morning, I would put that thing on 70 degrees Fahrenheit. In sunny Los Angeles, that is an acceptable and understandable setting. It could get hot as hell outside. I set it there, so coming into the house felt nice and comfortable. Every morning, I put it on 70, and within an hour, the would be on 85. Now, I would still be in the room. No one was touching it. But I would be working on lyrics, and suddenly I'm making my own gravy, swimming in juices I never knew I had. I would jump out of bed, well, lazily slink out of bed, let's be fair, and run to the dial. There it was, 85 degrees. No windows were open, and no doors were letting the cool air escape. The thing was being turned up, and nobody was around. This happened all the time, and it was driving me insane. One night, I was hanging out with friends in my room. Clown was off somewhere taking pictures or playing snare drums, so we had the place to ourselves. We were cracking each other up and taking pictures of each other doing goofy shit like sticking our guts out with our shirts pulled up and flexing like idiots, mugging for the camera with undisguised glee. I had the camera, and I was shooting around at other people when I noticed it was hot as again. What the hell? I got up off the bed, and sure enough, the bastard was locked in at 85 degrees. I had an uneasy notion, so for gits and shiggles, I went back through the photos I had been snapping, and one shot made me freeze and stare for a very long time. There, right next to my buddy being an idiot, were 3 orbs swirling around and right on top of the thermostat. I still have the photo to this day. I showed everyone else in the room, and suddenly we felt the need to hang out somewhere else. Another night I was sleeping soundly, dreaming about vampires or guns or whatever, when I woke up to music. Now, you may be saying to yourself, of course you heard music, you were living in a recording studio. But the music I heard was not our music. Hell, it was not even remotely close to Slipknot music. It was like old ballroom music, the kind you would hear at a dance hall or a speakeasy in the 20s. It had a jaunty bounce to it, but it was lilting and hypnotic. And for some reason, it was coming from my closet. I had a drowsy little moment when I was convinced someone had put a radio in there to f with me. Another crazy idea was that Sid, who essentially was holed up directly below my room, was doing some kind of soundtrack work for a period piece. Either way, I climbed slowly out of bed, opened the door, and it stopped dead. 1 minute there was a party going on, and the next there was cold, hard silence. I took a look around for a radio, but there was nothing there. The closet didn't even have electrical outlets in it. I tried not to freak out, thinking I would get to the bottom of it in the morning, but when I got up the next day, I found out there were only 3 people in the mansion that night. And then Sid hit me with a little chilling knowledge. Nah, man, I wasn't playing music. I thought it was you. What the hell was that? I left it at that and went back to eating M&Ms. Let me tell you something really quick here. My time at the mansion was not all spooks and specters. We had some really good times in that place, even if it was a little out of control from time to time. There was one night when we threw a barbecue and everybody and their mom showed up for it. It was so awesome that word spread down the Sunset Strip that Slipknot's having a party. I remember standing on the veranda with an acoustic guitar. On one side was Sebastian Bach, singing madly and throwing monstrous high fives at anyone within reach. On the other was Be Real from Cypress Hill, who would not let me coax him into a stripped-down rendition of Insane in the Brain, no matter what I offered him. Behind me was a group of little people called Mini Kiss. And yes, they were in full Kiss makeup and costume. This was the same night a certain actor, who I will only refer to as Beak, tried to get me to do crystal meth off of a toilet on the 2nd floor. I kindly refused. The night ended with me naked out on the patio singing Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday by Boyz II Men with 4 dudes I had never met before and have not met since. Thankfully, there is no video of this event, nor were they upset by my lack of pants. I woke up in my room, somehow, came downstairs to survey the damage, and nearly threw up when I realized I was the only one around who was going to clean the place. So I did. It took me nearly 3 hours. I lived in the mansion off and on for 7 months. It had some incredible ups and unbelievable downs. Remember, this was when I decided to give up my whiskey-sodden lifestyle and get my shit together. But I look back with fondness on that time in my life. So, mixed up in all the madness, there was the whisper of what was yet to come, and better yet, what could be. I went through a serious life overhaul, and Slipknot got an amazing album out of the deal. On a humorous note, I broke my toe running up the main staircase one day, but not knowing I had broken it, I walked around on it for 2.5 years before I finally had it x-rayed. It's still broken to this day. There's a pressure fracture on the main joint, making it swell up and turn red when I am on my feet for too long. The toenail filled with blood, then died, causing it to grow irregularly. It's angry at all times, and it shakes when it senses evil. Yes, loyal readers and followers on Twitter, the mansion was the place where Hugo the Angry Toe was born. He never sleeps, he never laughs, he just swells, hurts, and hates. I have learned over the years to never look Hugo in the eye. Those of you who follow me on various social networks have seen Hugo. You have had a flash of my pain. Feel sorry for me. The year 2003 turned to 2004, and I was preparing to leave the mansion. We were making arrangements to finish the album at Rick Rubin's actual home, a place that is almost creepier than the house this chapter is dedicated to. Another band was getting ready to take over 2451, and I was setting up shop in a hotel. For 1 month, I finished my vocals next to a giant stuffed bison I named Smitty in the basement of the Rubin residence. It was finally time to say goodbye, and God bless, to the hulking construct on Laurel Canyon. I was going to miss it in my own weird way. I had spent many nights really f***ed up in that house. I had then started the long process of getting my together halfway through my tenure there, swearing off drinking and devoting myself to being a better man all around. But before I moved out, there was one last happening that still gives me the chilly to this day, 8 years later. So don't say I didn't warn you. Proceed with caution and a clean nappy. My last night in my room, I was alone because Clown had moved out and gone back to Iowa. He had finished his parts earlier and was spending time with his family before the tour fired up. When I looked at his side of our wing, it made me sad to see nothing over there. None of his posters, none of his tobacco pipes, nothing but his rental furniture and a crude set of drapes to keep the California sun at bay. I could have used his balcony, but I never did. It still felt like his area, and I respected that, even though he was gone. I was almost done packing up the stuff I had accrued during my stay, like some posters, a broken acoustic guitar, and a dock for my iPod so I could listen to music. My suitcases were stuffed to fits with all my clothes and toiletries. All I had to do was go to sleep, ship the stuff I would not take back home, and move into a hotel. In fact, that was the plan I fell asleep thinking about. I'm not sure what time it was when I saw the figure at the end of the bed. I'm quite sure it was between 2 and 3 in the morning because the moonlight, which only shone in the window during those hours, was really bright for some reason. Then again, maybe this thing was creating this light. Either way, there was a pale blue-gray to the room, like that time in the morning when you know you should not be awake, but you have to pee, so you peep your eyes to slits and let your mind guide you toward the toilet like a telepath, praying to God you get there without stubbing your toes on the wall, and also hoping you can keep yourself from pissing all over your feet. That was the color of the room. But there was also a dark shape right near my feet. As groggy as I was, I assumed it was one of the guys in the band, possibly looking for something or needing assistance. I was obviously in no mood to help with anything, so I closed my eyes again, if only for a split second. That's when the covers were jerked violently off the bed, and my already fairly chilly semi-nude frame. They were yanked so viciously that my body, which had hooked an arm around the top of the blankets and sheets in my slumber, was pulled up slightly from the waist to my chest. I rose up about half a foot and slammed back down. Well, needless to say, that got my attention, and I shot awake with a start and a furious retort fully formed on my lips. There was nobody there. Not one. I was laying in my bed with no covers, angry and ready to fight air. I looked around the room. I even got out of bed and looked down the hallway. Most of the band had already gone home, so I'm not sure who the hell I was looking for. My caveman brain was all fired up and wanted to scream at someone for waking me up and pissing me off. My logical brain could not get a handle on what had just happened. My body, meanwhile, was telling me to go back to sleep and we would be mad in the morning. So, being a man, that is just what I did. When I came to later and thought about the incident, I did what any man in my position would have done. I had a cup of coffee, got all my together, and got the out of Dodge. And I have not been back to the mansion since. I regard those months spent in the mansion as the most frightening and formative I have gone through since I was a child. It was invigorating and terrifying and absolutely out of control at times. I not only ran the lanes on the edge faster than I had done since I was a teenager, but I had also been enveloped in a crazy world in which you were never sure if you were ever alone on any given night, whether the house was crammed full of people or not. These memories tantalize my taste for adventure from time to time, and I find myself looking back more frequently, even though it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, to paraphrase a man more savvy than myself. All I can tell you is that I am a different man from the one who moved into the mansion back in the summer of 2003. That man may as well have died, his spirit roaming the halls and rooms of that house along with all the other beings who call 2451 Laurel Canyon a home away from home. That phase of my life was darkly appealing, but it served its purpose. So commingling with those shades of ghostly gray are all the things in life I let go of so I could be the man I am today. If there was such a thing as a baptism by Hell House, that wing of my memory palace is where it would be displayed. I know when I fall asleep tonight I will go back there because I have been typing about it and thinking about it. I'm unafraid now. There is nothing that place can take from me ever again.
If you've had an unwanted encounter with a ghost, that's a demonic deception. But if you're actively seeking out dead spirits, that's a huge no-no. God has very strong warnings against this. Don't believe me? Let's look at some verses. Deuteronomy 18 verses 10 through 12 says, "There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because these abominations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee." And it gets worse, because if you look at Leviticus 20:27, it says, "A man also or woman that hath a familiar spirit, or that is a wizard, shall surely be put to death. They shall stone them with stones, the blood shall be upon them." So if God is instilling the death sentence for trying to contact dead spirits, it must be pretty serious. The only spirit or ghost that we should be talking to is the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit. And the only hope of eternal life is through Jesus Christ. The devil has many deceptions, but the Word of God cuts through all of his lies and bullcrap. So you should not fear ghosts or demons or other spirits, but instead fear the Lord. And that's the problem with people that get involved in necromancy and ghost hunting, is they get caught up in this excitement, I guess initially at first, but sometimes this can bring upon them fear and dread and paranoia. But you should not fear these creatures. You shouldn't mess with that stuff, but you really need to fear God. And so if you're saved and messing with this stuff, return to God and get away from that stuff. And if you're not saved, then don't believe these lies, and you should get saved and serve God. And that's the quick answer of it. So that's all I have to say about this topic. Stay away from these ghosts and trying to talk to them, because they're actually demonic entities that hate God. And also remember this: the thunder of his power, who can understand? There is a truth that is purposely hidden by the sinful and evil ones of this world. Romans 1:18 says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness." The truth is that mankind is on its way towards a destination of destruction. Even if the world convinces us everything will be all right. Proverbs 14:12 says, "There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." All of us are guilty, and all of mankind are sinners before God. Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God." Man needs God for salvation, and Jesus Christ is God. Colossians 2:9 says, "For in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily." Christ's redeeming blood on the cross in his resurrection provides salvation. 1 Corinthians 15 verses 3 through 4 says, "For I delivered unto you first of all that which I also received, how that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the third day according to the Scriptures." Acts 4:12 says, "Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men, whereby we must be saved." When you believe in Christ as your Savior, your sins have been washed away, and you will go to heaven to be with God when you die. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." If you die without trusting in Christ, then you will spend eternity in the flaming torments of hell under God's judgment. John 3:36 says, "He that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, and he that believeth not the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth on him." God doesn't want that. He is just and punishes sinners based on their wickedness, but he desires for man to come to repentance and choose his redeeming provision through Christ. 2 Peter 3:9 says, "The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance." Church attendance, confession to a priest or pastor, and trying your best to be good will not save you. Ephesians 2 verses 8 through 9 says, "For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast." By God's perfect standards, no one is good or righteous. So, believe and trust in Christ to justify you on Judgment Day. The greatest thing about God's gift of salvation is that it is free and cannot be taken away. If you put your faith only in Christ for salvation, but continue to live in a life full of sin, God will discipline you in this life, but he will not take away your salvation. Hebrews 12 verses 6 through 7 says, "For whom the Lord loveth he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not?" Jesus promises to keep you no matter what. Philippians 1:6 says, "Being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ." I want to close with John 5, verse 24, which says, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word, and believeth on him that sent me, hath everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life." Amen.